ass bitch, I'ma talk like that. Skin on glow and the ass on fat. Everything out my mouth, and I'm spin straight facts. With the top off, that's no cap. Hey, that's safari talk. We be wild out here like safari walks. In a cloud of thoughts, got a little bit of steam that we blowing off. Sup, freaks? I'm Amiri Safari.
And I'm Trinity Safari.
And this is Safari Talk, where we discuss love, sex, kink, relationships, and pretty much everything under the damn sun through our lens as a polyamorous pansexual couple in LA.
Yep.
So let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Last episode, if you guys were listening, you know, we let y'all know, for those of you guys who don't know us, that we are pansexual and polyamorous. And a lot of people, like, you know, because we've defined these things, we're just like, duh, like when I say this to you, this should mean something kind of thing.
Yeah, like we've been on this for like 10 years. So it's very like, oh, okay, regular. Everybody understands.
Right. But we realize that there are a lot of people, and nothing's wrong with that, but there's a lot of people who just like either haven't encountered the word or they encountered it loosely and they maybe think it's something different than what it is, or they just don't really know, you know? So, yeah. And as like queer people in non-conforming relationships, we're like, let's help define a few things. Let's like educate some people, because I think sometimes, you know, the assumption that everybody knows and you're just kind of just like move like you know, it's just like why people don't understand, and then it just creates this
And I
like
always
gap.
love to know that, you know, there's still so much knowledge to be had for everyone, you know?
Yeah, we're still learning things. Shit, it's been a journey.
Exactly.
You don't arrive, you know, at life. You just like, the whole thing's a fucking journey. So polyamory and pansexuality is part of that. And yeah, so for one, okay, there's so many layers to this, right? Because it's like, okay, for one, pansexuality is I guess it's more of it's a sexual identity. It's not a gender identity. It's not a relationship style.
Yeah, it's a sexual orientation.
Yeah, exactly.
Pansexuality is a sexual orientation.
Exactly.
Where
like
polyamory is a relationship orientation.
Exactly.
Completely different.
Exactly. So you don't have to be one to be the other, which is why we always say both. You know, it's just like the two P's. You know, they're just
exactly.
Like, yeah.
We are both.
They're like, what? Pescatarian.
Exactly.
Like, no, that's a different P. No, but but yeah, but so as far as being pansexual, like we said, that's a sexual orientation. So that's like being like gay or like bi or like whatever, but it's its own category, because as pansexual, you know, people, the way I like to describe it, you can say what your definition is, because, you know, connotation, right? I'll say my definition. You should say your definition, right? Okay, but the way that I define pansexuality for myself is that I'm attracted to the vibe. I'm attracted to like the soul or the energy inside the person. And yes, I have to be attracted to them physically as well, but that could look like a ton of different things. To me, it doesn't matter what your genitalia looks like. You know, it doesn't matter like if you're a certain whatever. You don't have to be a certain age. You don't have to be a certain whatever. It's like, how do we vibe? How do we connect? How do you make me feel when I see you? Let's go off of that. So for me, that's pansexuality, because it's like, yeah, not everybody gonna get it, but anybody can get it. So how about that?
Exactly. That's really good. I actually really like that. I like that a lot.
Thank you very much.
It's the same for me. Like, for me, I like to find attraction in like how I really, really, really connect with a person. So basically, yeah, like you said, anybody basically could get it. It just depends on how we make each other feel.
How we feeling, how we vibing, what's going on. So yeah, pansexuality for me was getting outside of that box. Also, or acknowledging that I'm someone who thinks outside of that box. It's like, of, you know, kind of the specificity of the form that someone comes in. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like must have a dick, or like, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Must identify as this.
Dickly,
and that's why we got to get into gender identity too, because Trin loves to joke. She be like, the men that's with me, they ain't straight though, because she non-binary. And she be like, I ain't a she, the fuck. So little do you know, so that's a whole nother layer.
C, right? Okay. I'm non-binary.
She's non-binary.
Which means I don't identify as a woman, which means if I have sex with a woman, I'm not a woman, so she's straight. right?
Wait, so
and if I have
I
sex
don't know
with a
about
man
that.
and he is not having sex with a woman,
I think those are both leaps. Those are connotative leaps. Okay,
connotative leaps. But we get where I'm going.
It has
and
a
all
direction.
the non-binaries agree. That's all I'm saying. We
Well, I'm
all
gonna say
agree.
this. No.
Everybody else doesn't have to.
Not fair to say that they are like gay or anything.
I didn't
like
say that.
Right?
Did you hear me say that?
I will say this is where queer is a good umbrella because
exactly. All I'm saying is, not a woman.
Right. It's
you
like,
perceive whatever you want.
But if you are, this is why more people need
me,
to adapt pansexuality, right? Because if you are with, say, the likes of Trinity, now you're not gay, but you are queer because you're with someone who's not a woman, technically, who does not identify as purely a woman.
Very interesting.
So it's a spectrum. And because sexuality and gender identity and different things are such a spectrum, it's like, yeah, you got to get out here in this jiggy jiggy jungle, get out here in this world and see what's going on. But yeah, queer is here. You know what I'm saying? Queer is a great umbrella.
Nothing wrong with that. Not at all.
And it's nothing wrong with being queer. All the coolest people are queer. If you haven't figured out how you're a little queer yet, then go ahead and do some soul searching because you're a little queer. Maybe you dating a lovely, they be like Trinity and you didn't even know you was queer, but you're now queer. You joined the gang. It's a cool gang. Get down.
It's funny. She's like, now you're queer. Now you're queer. you like Trinity? Queer. And it's like, I'm very lovable. Everyone likes me. We're all queer.
It's just a spectrum of identity. Like I said, the more people open up their spectrum of identity, you can't always look at someone and know how they identify as far as their like gender or whatever. So, you may be perceiving your preference as one way, but by true definition, it's something else. And nothing's wrong with that because sexuality is a spectrum. Identity is a spectrum. And, that's why I feel like we can title ourselves as a measure of like, communicating and, different things like that. Nothing wrong with that, but not getting so hung up on titles like that's a girl or that's a guy or, let me figure it out. It's like, look, that's just a soul floating around in a body.
That's a
Let them do
that really makes me feel happy and makes me feel uplifted.
Yeah. How does that person make you feel?
I make them feel happy and really uplifted. So that's what we're going for.
Because, I'd rather, rather than be in what maybe society or maybe I've been told is like a conforming relationship or whatever. Like, oh, you got to be monogamous and be with a dude or whatever. And not saying that I couldn't have been happy that way or whatever. Not saying that. But I'm saying I would rather live the life I want to, be with who I want to based off of how they make me feel, how satisfying it is living my life, making the choices that I make, rather than say making that choice because it's like it fit a certain box that I was supposed to check or like be or a certain, place I was supposed to be contained in. So get queer. Okay.
Basically.
Get your queer lives together. Okay. It's free over here. We like it. We love it. We want some more of it. But yeah, so, there is a spectrum. And I feel like, some people don't even get like I said, that's why I just like accept people for who they are and listen to what people tell you they are and how they identify. Because even something like, I know a lot of people wouldn't think like, say like, or some people know obviously, but 50-50, like a drag queen and a trans, woman. It's like, you could be a drag queen and not be a trans woman. Literally. You could also be both. You could also be both. But, people who don't know, the unawares, just group that shit up together. And they're just like, all that shit, we're gonna, and it's like these people have different expressions, different ways that they want to be treated. So communication is key. And if you don't know, if you don't know what a sexual orientation is or what a, identity is, I feel like most people, and it's funny because people on the outside, I feel like are scared to ask questions sometimes because they automatically feel like the person will perceive it as disrespect. But I feel like if you come at someone respectfully, generally, they will answer you. They will inform you.
Exactly.
Like they would rather you have the questions and be like, another good question I always ask is, oh, what's your pronouns?
Exactly.
So it's like, then you can find out a little bit about them and how they want to be addressed and how they want to identify or whatever. But most people are going to be, most queers are going to be glad that you, are going to be glad that you asked a little more in an honest way.
They aren't glad, it's making yourself an ally for the straight people out there because the more you make that a normalized situation, even in straight spaces. I was in a space recently where it was just pretty much all queer people, and I realized that I get really used to saying I get used to saying my pronouns are she, they because I'm used to being around straight people, but technically I prefer they, she around gay people, but I say it so often that even around gay people I say she, they, and it's
Oh,
just so
Trini.
interesting. Yeah, I know. And then they be looking at me like, "Oh, really?"
Aw. Right. You get judged by the straights, get judged by the gays. Where do I belong?
They be like, basic. I be like, "Oh no. Wrong crowd." Anyway, yeah.
Oh no.
Struggles. But anyway, all I'm saying is I am just wait, where was I?
You
Where
were
was I
talking about
going?
being in queer spaces and being in
Yes.
a straight up queer
Yes.
space.
Allies. Yes.
Allies.
Ask
Boom.
more.
Okay.
Everyone should ask because then it just becomes normalized. And then queer people don't have to feel uncomfortable about correcting people, or they don't have to correct people because everyone just asks.
Yes.
And then we get used to not perceiving people. That's another thing I absolutely hate when I misgender people, because I'm just used to everyone looking a certain way because that's what it's supposed to be, but it's not. And when you're in more spaces where you're challenged that way, you can learn. So
you flex that muscle and then it becomes
Exactly.
second nature.
It
Then,
becomes
it's just
more
like
natural.
asking what's your name or just asking,
you
where
don't
you
feel
from.
so uncomfortable
just
by
a
these
regular
situations
question.
because it's regular.
Mm-hmm.
So challenge yourself, guys.
Yes. And, knowledge is power. And a lot of fear comes from either misinformation or lack of information. So, that's why ultimately, even if they ain't the gladdest to your face, we're ultimately all glad as a collective that you're informing yourself and arming yourself with information. And again, there's no it shouldn't be like I'm so much more evolved than the next person. It's a growing process. Sometimes you do have to remember people's pronouns. Sometimes you do have to, but that's why you practice.
And in that, sometimes you mess up.
Yes.
And I feel like everybody has to take a little bit of a relax on that. If you messed up, you messed up. Everybody messes up.
A genuine mistake.
I think sometimes people also take it very personally when they mess up. And I'm just like, it's okay.
It's on both sides. Everyone should have a little more compassion and understanding.
Every time I mess up, I'm like, wow.
Because I've definitely messed up.
I'm like,
I've definitely sat there and told a friend, yo, hey, no, you're supposed to say they, blah, blah, blah. To
like
person.
His pronouns
and then
are
be
they.
Like, yeah. And then, like, yeah, you're like, what the fuck? I'm confusion,
What was that?
Yeah,
Terrible.
Exactly. Or like you say, you let them know, and then like later you say, oh, he this, or you're like, oh,
fuck. So it happens to everybody, and we're all working on it. So if you mess up, you messed up.
But I feel like be genuine, be respectful, apologize if you made a hiccup. It happens. Also, gaybies, please be a little more accepting and understanding.
Oh yeah, that was the other side of it.
When people come at you genuinely apologizing, we all know the people who are just assholes and it's just gonna be like, oh, I'm misgendering you on purpose.
Doing it by accident.
But a lot of people are trying out here, so give the triers a chance.
Cool.
Boom.
But slide. Everybody, let's be friends. Break.
Let's all get along.
Okay.
We can get together.
So that covers the pansexual part, which is the sexual orientation
of
now we can move on to the relationship orientation, which is polyamory.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so polyamory, the root word, poly, right, is many, and then amor, or that's love, right? So it's to love many or numerous people, more than one, okay? Just like monogamy, or to be monogamous, is to mono's one. So, yeah. But
for us,
something else,
we actually, funny enough, back to our relationship orientation, back when we were just friends, we talked about how whoever we ended up with we would be polyamorous with. We had already decided that. That was our own
it was next relationship.
We were we don't feel like we have to own our partners, and we want them to go out and be free and live life.
Yeah, it's so many, obviously. Okay, so that's the thing, right? Because there's always like I was saying, connotation and denotation. We have the basic thing, which is what I defined. But then there's kind of what polyamory means to you, just like what pansexuality means to you, right? So I guess you describe from your perspective now, what polyamory is to you, and I will do the same.
To me, I would say polyamory is just the room to love, and in one way you would think that that means always in very like relationship, boyfriend girlfriend types of ways, or girlfriend girlfriend, boyfriend boyfriend types of ways, but honestly I feel like it even gives you more room for friendship and just meeting people and allowing connections to form genuinely for whatever they can be without putting boundaries on them. So I like to think of polyamory as just like an open way to love.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely concur. An open way to love. I feel like, and not to say any one way is wrong, it's all about what works for you. But I feel like, a lot of us hadn't been given the chance because of how we were taught from the beginning. It wasn't really like, oh, here's an option of all these styles. It was something that you had to like come into. Um, because monogamy is definitely like push, push, push. And it's definitely beautiful for one person to love another person, and that's wonderful. But as far as like toxic monogamy, there's a lot of toxic things that come with that, like that love equals jealousy, or love equals control, or love equals possession, kind of thing. And the fact that that narrative just became so regular, that just became like, yeah, this is how somebody acts when they really love you. They gonna be crazy. They gonna bust the windows out your car.
Exactly.
They gonna pop up. They gonna LoJack you and track you. Like, no, that's crazy, y'all. Like, you don't own that other
We don't
human
have to do
being.
that.
You shouldn't have to do that. Like, and it's
Don't.
like, yeah, polyamory to me, definitely freedom to love is a very, very good way to put it, because I do feel like it means both freedom and love, and freedom to love, because it's like, one, I understand that I do not own this person, that I choose them and they choose me every day.
Every day.
Literally, we
Yep.
wake up and we're like, which, some people, of course, look at polyamory as like, oh, it's just like this, like, flim flam way to live. And, oh, y'all not serious. Y'all polyamorous, and it's like, that could be your perspective, but like,
Perspective.
but dead ass, like, I'm so serious. Like, first of all, number one. Number two, it's like, who are you to judge what someone else's seriousness means to another? Because, like I said, I feel like, it's, to me, it was an even deeper way to love, a way to love, like, let that person do what they want to do, be who they want to be. Like, you don't control them. You choose each other every day. I feel like, hey, we can love multiple siblings. We can love multiple children. We can love multiple, all types of beings, family members, whatever, friends. We can have multiple best friends. Why, when it comes to romantic love, it's like all of
We
a
can
sudden
only
it's
have
like
one.
lockdown, where it's
Yeah.
like, you don't value that first one if you somehow end up with someone else, And it is nice to have the freedom to connect because of that. Like I said, a lot of toxic monogamy culture and shit like that, unfortunately, it's like it gets so far that it's like, no, you can't go out with your friends. Like, no, you can't like do shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, you can't meet somebody new. You can't get somebody's number. Like, oh, who you connected with at a party? Are you networking? Like, it becomes a thing. And it's like, not everything is gonna blossom into a sexual relationship.
Exactly.
But it is nice to be able to approach people and just meet people for who they genuinely are, and let your connection be what it's genuinely gonna be, and not feel like, oh, but I'm bogged down, and oh, what will she think if I text him back? Like,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? I don't know. So yeah, for us, to me, it made perfect sense. Both of us individually in our own like kind of research and shit, and we talked about it, and it just made perfect sense. So yeah, a lot of people also be asking us like, so how did y'all become polyamorous? And it's like, actually, we came into it both on our
we were
own.
always polyamorous. That's
It
kind
was
of how
like
we
that we fucked with that.
came into the relationship, because we had already spoke on it previously. So
yes,
it was
and I was
beautiful.
about to say also,
But
how our, you got to listen to the first episode for that. But how
exactly.
how our relationship started and everything was also, one, the perfect segue. Two, because we were already, best friends and shit, we had pretty good communication, and so we're like, we talk about it and we're like, yo, so we did say that that's what we was gonna do. Like, you still like, we still like other people, and we got together so young. Like, were we like 21 and 20 or some shit like that?
Yep.
dude.
So long. Yeah, and the best part,
I'm like, she is wonderful, but this is not the last bitch I'm fucking for the rest of my life.
even though
Nothing wrong with that.
tight, no,
It would be a great.
It would
be a great thing.
I would never hold her like that because I'm tight like that.
Because she already hold me because I'm gonna come back.
Yeah,
regardless of who I'm fucking with, I'm here. I'm here. I'm not going nowhere.
Exactly. We never had other relationships that were that way. Now, I'm going to say in the relationship where we dated best friends that we were talking about in the last episode, the guy, I tried to tell him, like, I was going to try that with him because we had already decided the whole polyamorous situation. Me and Amiri had already talked about it. So I'm like, oh, I knew he was talking to other people. So I was just like, yeah, like, you could just talk to me about it. We can, like, talk and blah, blah, blah. And he would just lie. Like, he would just consistently lie. And I was just like,
let me also say, this is a good time to say this, that polyamory also means honesty and communication.
You gotta be honest.
Honesty and communication. People think it's just like, oh, let's just like all like fucking bump uglies. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, no, dude, like, to have successful fucking polyamory, you do have to be honest. You have to communicate. For all them relationships you in, however many that used to be, you got to communicate that much more. Like, you got to make sure.
Is it polyamory if you're not exactly honest about
everything?
No.
And 1,000% not. You know that answer.
It's cheating.
You know that answer. You know that answer. 1,000% it's not.
You dirty dog.
Wanting to have your cake and eat it too, being unfair, being a roof.
Right, because honesty allows room for equilateral treatment. But I would say that everyone's polyamory looks different, which we're going to get into that in a second, because like from the moment we started and being polyamorous, our polyamory looks like
massively different,
totally different from when we started, and nothing's wrong with the different layers or different, different ways people express
to see how it flows.
Exactly. So different ways, it's just like fashion. Like, okay, we know it's like cute, but like, how you gonna swag it? You know what I'm saying? What works for you?
Like that was cute for the moment, but then you look back and you're
then
like,
that trend is over. That shit is weak. Yeah, like that shit's out of here. That doesn't work for us anymore. I'm not fucking with it.
Cool.
So kick it out. Like decide what works for you, which is kind of our lifestyle in general. Like exactly. I'm a take in all the knowledge that I can and all the understanding that I can, but I'm gonna decide what works for me, what I fuck with. Keep that. The rest, is cool.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, I feel like that's the thing about honesty. You can be honest and you can set parameters. Some people are gonna be like, oh, hey, I don't want to know every little thing you do. Like, we have an agreement, so that's cool. And I don't have to hear about every date, or I don't have to hear about this and that. Cool, bet. But then you guys have still been honest with each other to have an understanding, right?
They don't want to know,
maybe you're honest and you're like, hey, tell me every time you like,
Or I want to know this level. Like, I want to know what you're doing at the times. I don't need to know every detail. And then some people are like, yeah, I want to know every detail.
I want to know the details. The details are exciting. Yeah, exactly.
Just depends.
Exactly. So there's so many layers to that, and there's no like wrong way to do it. It's definitely based off of you guys' comfort level and different shit like that. And you guys' agreement. You guys need to both have agreed to that shit. Like,
exactly.
Because I see a lot of, just kind of how you was talking about, like, you go talk to, you're like, yeah, let's be polyamorous. You're like, oh, word. And then try to act like he only fucking you because he wants you to think.
Me to be doing the same
thing. Because he want to be, you don't only be fucking.
I could be doing my thing. We can all be doing our own thing. I have no problem with that.
But some people, part of the reason for the dishonesty be not wanting the other person to do their thing. Yeah, just me. And that's a little fucked up.
I'm looking at someone.
Oh.
Calling someone out.
Calling out.
Sometimes people say things up front and then people don't. Like, communication has to go both ways. Like, you
True.
can say something when you first meet someone, oh yeah, I'm polyamorous. And then some time between that relationship, they're shocked and offended that you're polyamorous. And because they do that.
True. That does happen too.
People do change their mind, and people also don't Google. First of all, when I first said that shit, you should have asked me
what I was talking
how
about.
to spell it.
They
what was that?
Like pansexual or something.
You should have looked that up.
People get those crossed.
Yeah, they like, yes,
they
I realized that.
Crossed very easily.
So you be like, I'm polyamorous. They be like, oh word,
I
like
you
freaks.
like all the people. Yeah, we can have sex with whoever.
And then it's like,
I like that.
And then later it's like, wait, hold up, you with other people? I'm like, that's
what? As like I said,
what I said.
You didn't know what
That's what-
polyamorous was? Why did you ask me?
That's it. That's what I
Or
said.
Google it secretly. I be doing that all the time.
Straight up. But
You guys have like a hierarchy, like in your relationship.
I would say technically, yes, we are each other's primary partners, but we do not try to like practice that type of like relationship politics over each other's partners. Especially because I've learned through life, you know, like love is beautiful, but it can be fleeting. So it's like I really want to promote everyone getting as much love as they can, all of my partners, you know?
which is
So-
also part of the polyamorous perspective. The thought that like I don't want to hold her back from any of the love that she could receive. I
Exactly.
feel like she's so worthy of love that whoever wants to give her love, that she wants to receive that love from, by all means, who am I to block that love?
Exactly.
You know, and I do feel like our specific style of polyamory has always been that we will allow for whatever the connection naturally is to unfold. So it's like, if, you know, that person's partner gets like real deep, you know, you guys connection gets
Exactly.
real deep or whatever, like I know what we have, so I'm not threatened personally.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
and
if that like partnership ends up taking more time, then like it's like, okay, if I feel like I need to say something about it, like, well, I feel like I need a little
Communicate.
bit more time at this point. Like, okay, cool. Like, we'll hang out more. Like, just that's why it's like
Exactly.
very good to try to do as much open communication as possible to try to feel as comfortable as possible to do that.
Yeah.
Like that's how you keep it.
Communication is
smooth.
actually a major key
Yeah.
to polyamory, for
Exactly.
sure. All right, guys, that was part 1. Thanks for listening. Keep
Thank
up
you,
with
thank
us
you.
at Tafari Talk on Instagram and all social media sites. My personal Instagram at Amiri Tafari, AMIIITAFARI, and Trinity's
As the Trinity Tafari, TheTriinityTafari.
So keep up with us, and until next time, check out part 2.
Yes.